Hello, welcome to another anime you should watch video for the previous season that's pretty much just ended. That is winter of 2026. I didn't even do one for last season for fall 2025. The last one I did was for summer. This wasn't enough shows I wanted to really talk about that weren't popular already. This season though, wow, what an incredible season of anime. I think purely from a production standpoint, it's up there as one of the best ever that I've seen as a season of anime. I've been watching seasonals for the best part of 6 years now. Obviously checked out a lot of anime prior to that as well from seasons, but as a whole, from a purely production standpoint, I think this season is the best that I've been a part of. These videos I kind of look to highlight shows that might not get talked about as much, and while these shows definitely had a fan base and definitely were somewhat popular, they were kind of overshadowed by other shows, such as, I'm going to talk about shows, but I'm not going to talk about Jujutsu Kaisen, Frieren, even Fate, shows that if you're watching anime videos like this on YouTube, you're probably well aware of how good they are. But I want to highlight some other shows that I think are good or on that level. And I'm not going to talk about Prism Rondo, Love Through a Prism, that also released last season, because I have a whole 20-minute video just talking about that video. I'll link it at the end, and I'll link it in the description if you want to check that out. So let's just get on to the first show.
砂漠、見渡す限りの乾いた砂、何もない。ここには何も。あ、夕飯？買い物行くなら手伝う。
日記は書きたくないことは書かなくていい。今書きたいことを書けばいい。本当のことを書く必要もない。
So that first show is of course Ikoku Nikki, Journal with Witch, a show I was hugely anticipating. The manga's been on my plan to read list for about the best part of 6 years now as well, and I ended up putting it off for so long that I ended up getting this adaptation, which was an incredible experience, especially getting to react to that on the channel as well. There's 13 videos of me watching that, so I suppose I maybe should have talked about Prism Rondo instead, but talking about the show as a whole, where I did that in the Prism Rondo video, whereas those are reactions usually focused on the episode, so I guess this can count for that instead. But as an adaptation, I've heard nothing but good things from the manga readers. I also understand that it also cuts a lot of stuff out and takes some creative liberties, so I definitely will be checking out the manga at some point, but I appreciate that the anime is trying to be its own thing rather than just sort of a one-to-one by the book adaptation. You're going to be able to tell them apart, obviously, beyond them just being different mediums, but there's different ways of telling the story and pacing and all that kind of thing, and I really appreciate when adaptations are able to do that and able to take these sort of creative liberties and freedom, and especially when with this show it feels like there is such an understanding of the source material, and the direction that matches the sort of writing it's impeccable. The script and the direction goes hand in hand so well. It feels like that they've worked together so closely, those two things. But at its core, Ikoku Nikki is a coming of age story, with surprisingly not a lot of angst. It kind of builds up in the background, and rather than sort of melodramatic conflicts in the foreground. In that way, I think it's really unique. I can't really compare it to anything. Maybe March Comes In Like a Lion is sort of the only other thing I can sort of compare it to, with the sort of atmosphere it's able to create and the sort of anxiousness and anxiety and unsettling feeling it's able to create, despite on the surface it feeling very like chill and upbeat at times. And I think that's testament to just how quietly confident the production is, and how it's able to capture that tone so well, while also having these dramatic moments and having these revelations and having these more animeisms. It's able to also feel incredibly grounded and realistic, but in a way that's not like in your face. I think a lot of shows that sort of sell themselves on being realistic end up overdoing it a bit and being like, look how realistic we are, look how grounded our dialogue is, or our backgrounds are, or our production is. It looks like a film, like. But Ikoku Nikki feels like an anime, but it feels like a realistic depiction of these characters, and a grounded one. It still feels like an anime at the heart, which is really great. It's about Asa, who is trying to overcome her grief, and then that sort of builds into her trying to find herself as just a person, just her traversing that rocky age, that teenage coming of age time that is just so hard and comes with so many hardships and conflicts and inner and outer battles. And even beyond Asa, we have Makio, who is an author who comes across as very cold, stands by her principles, but my god, she teaches Asa so much about the world and helps her so much in this process, while also not being too involved in her life. She still remains Makio. She remains who we were told she is, and who she is as an adult, as someone who is already established who she is, who has already found herself, compared to Asa, who is lost and really trying to find her way. Makio is feels like a rock in the story, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. And there's also just a really fantastic array of side characters and other characters, even like side characters who barely even have any lines of dialogue, and they yet still feel very real within Asa's life and within the scope of the story. They feel like, even though we've spent 1 minute of screen time with them, they contribute to the story and what the show's trying to say so well. And on that point, the show has really just a fantastic message and it's such a life-affirming show. And while it's not similar to Dress Up Darling Season 2, it feels very life-affirming in a similar way. The way it sort of criticises society and the patriarchy and all these stuff that we're told isn't supposed to be normal, and what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to feel and what you're supposed to do in the future. And it feels like a show that's been made for everyone out there who feels like they are different in one way or another, whether that's someone who doesn't quite fit in with their friendship group, or someone who different sexual orientation, neurodivergence. It taps into all these different realms of being a human, and comes out with positive things to say about them. Comes out you feel good about yourself. You feel good about the message this show's trying to tell. And then underneath that is just an incredible story to go along with it. I'm really excited to get to the manga and just see what that sort of has in store for us. But Ikoku Nikki definitely is a acclaimed show. For like everyone who watched it loves it, but I wanted to include this on the list because while you have shows like Jujutsu Kaisen, Frieren, even something like Witch Hat Atelier coming out next season, they end up overshadowing this sort of show. And I absolutely think this is worth a mention. So yeah, let's move on to the next show.
西、夏休みに推しのコラボカフェが。やっぱり来たな。山田。 頑張れ山田、1学期最終日。今度はどんな回りくどい手を使ってくる。
西さん、俺西さんと仲良くなりたいんだけどもう夏休み入るから友達になって。
急にド直球。
どうしよう。でも目を合わせて喋るより文でやり取りする方が緊張しないかも。ではよろしくお願いします。
やった
私あんまり粋な返しやツッコミなどはできませんが。
ー。いや別に漫才コンビ組むんじゃないんだから。
確かに。
The next show is, of course, You and I Are Polar Opposites, a show I actually didn't pick up originally. I had some people in my replies saying to pick it up in the videos, and people on Twitter were talking positively about it. I also just quite liked the aesthetic of it from the outside, so I ended up picking it up, thankfully. And my god, what a joy. I'm not really the type that enjoys rom-coms like these. I feel like the comedy can quite easily get repetitive. The angst isn't enough for me usually in rom-coms like this. I prefer more drama-orientated shows. I also end up feeling like side characters end up overshadowing the protagonists, and obviously these rom-coms like to establish like 2 or 3 couples, and most of the time I feel myself gravitating towards the side character couples instead. This show absolutely does not do that. There were like 3 main pairs in this show, and they're all fantastic. Every time we switch focus to one of them, I'm not like, oh, I wish we went back to that, or I wish we would just follow these characters, or I'm bored watching these characters. Every dynamic and pair that was established, I was like, yeah, I want more of this. I'm very happy to be watching these 2 characters on screen and their development. And it's also a show that doesn't waste any time in its developments. I mean, the first episode kicks off with a confession, and the main 2 characters sort of get together to spoil things for you. But that is like the appeal of the show. That is what makes it so good. You have that for our main protagonist, then you have another couple who end up taking a bit more time to get together, and another couple who aren't even together yet, but they're certainly projecting it in the show. And it's just a joy. It's just an absolute joy to watch. The comedy always hits. It doesn't really use the same sort of gags that often. The dialogue between the friends feels very nice and natural. I think that is the sort of the main appeal for me, is the friendship group dynamic all just feels very chill and like not like shoved in your face. Like, oh, these guys are such good friends. I feel like that's something that the Fragrant Flowers Blooms of Dignity does a little bit too much, is like really try and force you to feel like these guys are really good friends. And I really like the manga for that, but it certainly has its flaws, and I think in comparison to something like this, where the group dynamic just feels so natural, and I believe these guys are friends. I don't need to be told they are, like when I just see them talking and interacting together. I also think visually the show is quite pleasing on the eye. It's got a very simplistic, minimal aesthetic, but it's able to like switch to sillier visual gags, and there's also some times where it does have a bit of nice animation in there, nice character animation, but the very simplistic sort of art style really suits the general feel and the vibe of the show. Really strong colours, and just it's just both very pleasant to look at and pleasant to watch. You never feel like, I think it's always good to have shows like this in your roster if you are a seasonal anime watcher. When you have the Jujutsu Kaisens, the Koku Nikis, even like the Fate Strange Fakes. Another show that I'll be talking about at some point, not Fate Strange Fakes, but another one is among that sort of category. This one it was just very pleasant, and it aired on a Sunday as well, so I got to in the morning or the daytime, enjoy watching that, and then go and record Ikoku Nikki on the Sunday evening or the Monday day after. So it was a nice contrast of them two airing together on the same day. But this was a very pleasant show, and it's getting a season 2 as well. Absolutely will be there for one of the couples that they hopefully will be developing in that. And I just want to make a quick comment on the opening as well. Sung by Noah, surprisingly, which was really cool to hear. And my god, the visuals are insane. Of course, it was directed by I failed to remember his name, but I know he directed the Shoshimin Season 2 opening from last year, which was my favourite opening of the year. And you can tell in terms of the creative direction. And it was initially the opening that actually kind of got me to watch the show as well. And I also really enjoy how the opening doesn't just feel like it's being creative for creative's sake. All the visuals shown in the opening match what the show is trying to tell and the dynamics that are in play. But yeah, You and I Are Polar Opposites, very chill show, very nice one core experience. While I'd be happy not to get more because I've just sort of had my fill of that sort of thing, I'll also be very happy to get a season 2 and we hopefully get to focus on the couple that might end up being my favourite. So yeah, let's move on to the next show.
Ma, これでもいいかなと思ったんですよね。
And the next show is Shiba Yogi, or Playing Death Games to Put Food on the Table. A show that I wasn't initially going to be talking about. I think at the start when I first watching it, I was sure that it would make it to this video that I do. And then in the middle, I wasn't too sure. And then by the end, I was like, yeah, I want to talk about this. Also a show that I wouldn't watch a death game show, a death game anime. I think they're usually pretty bad and end up feeling a bit too edgy. And this one certainly was edgy at times, but what made me end up watching it is because Sota Ueno is the one directing it. He directed Days with My Stepsister from 2 years ago now. I think it was 2 years ago. It might have been last year. No, it was 2 years ago. And I love his style. I love how just true to his own vision he is, willing to take certain creative liberties and willing to twist the source material to his own liking while keeping it very faithful. And him being partnered with the composer for Ancient Magus Bride, one of my favourite shows, which has one of my favourite OSTs. My god, they're a match made in heaven. And Shiba Yogi, it certainly fluctuates in quality. I can't be the one to be like, yeah, this show's amazing, as compared to the other shows on this list as well. But it's something I can't not talk about with how creative its direction is. There is like nothing like it I can compare it to. Maybe Zaragoto, if you've seen that. It's the only possible sort of show I think I can compare it to here. And I think the first episode is a double length episode, works incredibly well to sort of set the tone and the scene of the show. It then gets into a couple arcs that I wasn't a big fan of, but then it ends on a really strong high. But it's essentially about this girl, Yuki, who is playing death games until she wins 99 games. That's it. The first episode is one of the games, then we have a few episodes, or a couple episodes and some arcs with other games. I think in all we see about 4 or 5 different games throughout the show. Some of them better than the others, as mentioned, but all in all, it's just such a unique experience. There is truly nothing like it with Ueno's direction. At times the visuals can really meander and feel a little bit meaningless. At other times you're kind of just in awe at what you're seeing, because there is just, you wouldn't have seen anything like it before, simple as. And I think that's why I want to recommend it. That's why I think you should go ahead and watch at least the first episode, because I can promise you won't have seen anything like it. And while it doesn't have a lot of like animation or Takago or anything like that, it's the direction that is the strongest, and the storyboarding and how unique it can feel. And like I mentioned, it sort of fluctuates in quality, but by the end I'm left with a really positive impression. For the last arc was really strong, and it came to make me really like Yuki as a character and some of the side characters it had, where previously I think a lot of the side characters weren't that interesting at all, but the final arc introduced a couple characters, more than a couple, that actually who I was really interested in. And also just the episode 1 is an incredible needle drop. I might end up including it as the video for the short video for the anime, but obviously I kind of want to not spoil it because it is an incredible moment to end the episode. But yeah, so while it's certainly not one of the best shows this season, I would have 4, 5 shows above it maybe. I absolutely don't regret watching it, and it's also getting a sequel movie, which I'm really excited for. I do hope Ueno gets the sort of resources and production time to match that of a movie, because I think while Shibuyogi's production is quite impressive, you can really feel the limitations at times. I need to see Ueno directing a show with full creative freedom and full resources at his disposal, because my god, he can create something really special and really unique if he's given full reins and just able to completely let loose. But yeah, a really fascinating show, a really fascinating show. And like I said, it's not something that I'm expecting you to maybe enjoy throughout or enjoy even at all, but I think the first episode is at least worth a watch, because it's just very fascinating, and I can promise you it won't be anything like you've ever seen if you haven't seen it. So go ahead, check that out. I can't blame you if you don't continue it, because it's certainly unique and can kind of go from incredibly boring to incredibly intense to emotional to it goes all over the place, and it can be a bit jarring at times, but it remains really interesting visually and audiovisually as well, because the OST is incredible. It's one of his best work. Matsumoto, I believe he's called, the composer. But yeah, those two, Matsumoto and Ueno, I'll be following them to the ends of the earth, because they're just so good together, and I really hope we get more projects beyond this for them two together. So yeah, that's that show. Let's move on to the next one, which is a bit of a sneak from me. It's a bit of a cheeky pull.
世界で一番お姫様そういう扱いほらエディよね騒いしいつもと違う みよう Hey baby お次は新曲いくよ
And the final show, or movie in this case here, is Cosmic Princess Kaguya. I don't usually do movies for this kind of thing. I kind of made a rule of that last year, because there were certainly some movies I wanted to include when I was doing the couple or so videos I did last year. But alas, here we are. I wanted to talk about this movie because it's just really fantastic. It's on Netflix. It's Shingo Yamashita's debut directorial role. He's done some openings which have been incredible, like the JJK ones, the early ones, but this is his first time sort of at the helm of a big project like this. And my god, it's just so enjoyable. Obviously it kind of rehashes the tale of Princess Kaguya, as a lot of sort of animes and shows like to do these days, but it has sort of a modern take on it. And man, it's interesting because I think when I first watched this, I was certainly impressed by it, especially its visuals and just the animation, everything like that. But the show just kind of stayed in my brain for longer than I was expecting it to after finishing it. And then I rewatched it on the plane over to Japan actually, and it got better. I think like the genuine only flaw for me for this movie is I think the ending feels a little bit rushed. It's an animated movie spanning over 2 hours, and the ending feels like stuffed into the last like 15 minutes or so of it. And I think despite it being that long, it absolutely could have done with more time to kind of expand on that a bit. And while I think the idea they had with the ending was really good, the execution just wasn't as good. But it's certainly not detrimental to the movie as a whole, as I'm talking about it here, of course, because everything prior to that is absolutely incredible. The dynamic between the main two, Yachiyo and Iroha, I mean, if you haven't seen it, I have a banner of Iroha up there. That's I do like her a lot. Yachiyo, Iroha, and Kaguya, like the main three dynamics, and they're just such a joy to watch on screen. A lot of this movie is split into, you have your slice of life stuff, and then you have some really heavy action sequences at one point. I think there's like a whole action portion that lasts for maybe 20 or 30 minutes. It's quite amazing, and there's just so much charm in the animation and the expressions and the direction, so much detail in like the rooms and the living spaces. Everything feels very lived in, and for me what stands out the most is the character animation, and not just the expressions but the little movements, the little bits of animation that go unnoticed by a lot. They express so much about the characters, and especially for Kaguya, who is very full of expressions. She gets a hell of a lot of animation to go along with it. Also the music is really quite incredible. A lot of insert songs and a lot of covers of songs, of famous Vocaloid songs. This movie is about obviously our two main characters, and then there's this like virtual world where there's like an idol at the front of it, Yachiyo, who voiced by Sari Hayami, by the way, who does an incredible job as her, and the music as well to go along with it is really incredible. But yeah, and I know this movie is actually quite popular, but it's still just sort of a standalone thing that it is very easy to miss. I think it's taken Japan by storm, I'm pretty sure. I know when I was out there I saw a lot about it. I know it was still airing at cinema there when I was out there, and the pop-up shop I went to was packed to the brim of people. But yeah, Cosmic Princess, absolutely worth watching. Cosmic Princess Kaguya. I do need to go and watch The Tale of Princess Kaguya, I think it's Studio Ghibli, the one of their older movies, because I know that looks beautiful, and I do need to just learn more about that tale in general. But there's also just some like fantastic, like explicit Yuri in Cosmic Princess Kaguya. Like there is it's not a sort of thing that's up to interpretation or doesn't sort of bait you in any way. It absolutely there is present in the text and the story, which is really nice to see of such a like sort of a big IP coming out of Netflix, a sort of big popular movie that was what's it called, that was just so advertised very heavily for Netflix and hyped up a lot. It's nice to see that sort of thing. I think these standalone movies that Netflix often produce end up falling flat or don't end up with much staying power. They just kind of come and go. But this one is absolutely one that will stay, both in my mind and in the mind of a lot of Yuri fans in general, especially. To one, get a production as extravagant and impressive as this, matched with a story of love between two girls, is incredible. It's a feat of achievement, I believe, and I do hope this movie gets talked about a long time from now, and I do hope it makes an impact on the industry as well. I hope that it shows that you can depict these sort of relationships in a more explicit way, and shows that this can get big budgets and big animation studios and production time and incredible staff contributions to them. But yeah, I wanted to end this video off on Cosmic Princess Kaguya because it is a really special time. Absolutely worth watching. Like I said, it's on Netflix, so just go check that out. And it's just such a fun time, both from a visual standpoint, audio as well, the music, the OST, the voice acting performances as well, really incredible. And there's a really simple story, but one you find yourself getting really lost into, and Iruha ends up being quite a relatable character, and the show really just sweeps you along with its like magic and the conflict and the angst that gets built up. It's really a good time and absolutely worth watching. So yeah, those are the three shows and a movie from last season I think are worth watching. Let me know if you've seen any of them, let me know if you're gonna watch any of them based on the video, and let me know if there's anything else you think I missed or should have included in this video. You can check my analyst, it's linked from my Twitter. I have a link to my Twitter in the description, which has an analyst link on my Twitter, so if you do want to know if I did end up watching certain shows or not, it is there. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys hopefully next season for another one of these videos. Bye.